Welcome to Ubuntu Server. In this lesson, we'll explore navigating the Ubuntu Server command line and using the help system. I chose to start with a few commands and the help system because you need that understanding to do much of anything in Linux Server. That little blinking cursor waiting for input can be kind of intimidating. Have no fear, you'll be hopping around and entering commands in no time. There are a few commands you use over and over in a given day of administering an Ubuntu server. You can see the first one I want to teach you, which is pwd for print working directory. The little TLD before the $sign indicates that I'm in my home directory. But where is that? By using the pwd command, we can see that it's in home Theo, which is the user I'm logged in as. If we want to see what's in that directory, we type ls. Well, there's nothing in there yet because I haven't added anything. Touch is a command we'll learn more about later, but it just creates a file, an empty file. So now if we type ls, we can see that there's a test.txt file in there. So let's say we want to go to a different directory. The command to do that is cd for change directory. If we change directory to the top of the file system, which is the root, if you type cd space /, you'll be at the root of the file system. Once you're at the root, you can type ls to see all the files and subdirectories in the root. We'll learn a lot more about the file structure later. If you don't have access to a Linux system yet, we'll be installing it in future lessons, so please don't worry about this. But if you can get to a Linux system, please follow along and give some commands a try. Now do some practice. Change directory to /etc. Then type ls. ls, with nothing after it, lists the files in the present directory. Let's print the working directory. And then we can see we're in /etc. This is often called the etc directory. So now we know how to change directory, see where we are in the file system with print working directory, and we know how to list the files in a directory that we're in. What if you want to do something that those commands don't do by themselves and you have to add arguments to them to see what you want? Let's access one of the help systems available by typing ls --help. Wow, that just scrolled by really quickly. We really can't do much with that. So it was a lot of information, but it went by too fast. So we'll go over this more in a later lesson, but we're going to pipe that output to something called less, another program. So we'll hit the up arrow, ls --, help, and then the pipe symbol, which is above the / key, usually below the delete key. You have to hit shift to make that come up. It looks like a little line. And we'll pipe that output to a program called less. Okay, that's a little better. We start at the top and we can scroll up and down and look for what we're after. So if we scroll down to L, we see that that makes a long list format for the output. Type Q to get out of ls. We type ls -l. So if we know when a file was created, but we don't remember exactly which file we're looking for, we now see the dates of creation for these files, along with some other information which we'll go over later in the course. So that help system --, help is available on Ubuntu and on many Linux systems, but isn't universal on all Unix-like operating systems. The more universally accepted way of getting help in Linux and Unix is the man pages. So you just type man in the command you're interested in. Typing man tells us about the man pages. Think of the man pages as a huge manual organized and put online for you to search with a simple command. So let's look at the man page for ls. So this is organized a little bit differently from the help pages. This format is standard across all versions of Linux, Unix, and BSD. It's got the name of the command as well as a quick description of it. It's got a synopsis. In this case, it's ls option file. Those things in square brackets are optional. You don't have to use those, but if you do, you get different output. And then it's got a description. It has a verbal description, and then it has the options or arguments that you can supply for more information or for different kinds of information. So in this case, we would scroll down to -L. And you can see that's a long list format. So there's a lot of information and a lot of options there. While you're looking for what you think you're after, you may find additional options that you didn't even know existed, that you can find really useful later on. Recursive. You could list all subdirectories recursively. For example. So to get out of the man page, you type Q for quit. So please do some more practice on your own. Check out the man pages for the 3 commands we used: cd, pwd, and ls. You'll find something interesting for cd. Make sure if you don't find it in one help system, you try the other. Next, we'll gain some understanding of what shells are and learn some more about the bash shell. In this lesson, we'll look at what shells are, what the bash shell is, and why they're important. To interact with the system, you have to have some program that lets you do that. In Linux, that's the shell. The shell is a special program that acts as your interface to the kernel and to the operating system. It lets you type commands in and have them interpreted and executed by the kernel or the operating system. There have been many shells developed in the years since Unix was invented. We'll look at a few of the main shells now. The first shell, called the version 5 shell, was developed by Ken Thompson in 1971. It had some functionality that we would recognize, but lacked some features we consider basic today. It was intentionally minimalistic to keep it small. Resources like memory and drive space were scarce in the beginning. The Bourne shell, the next major shell, was developed by Stephen Bourne and released in 1977. The Bourne shell let programmers and administrators use many of the standard programming constructs in use today. Those include control flows, loops, and variables. This means that scripts written for bash became much more powerful and could act like or call actual programs. There are many other shells, including the Korn shell, that's Korn with a K, by David Korn. The TC shell for 10x C shell by Ken Greer, developed in 1975 and merged into the C shell in 1981. And the Born Again shell, which is the focus of this lesson. The Born Again shell attempted to take many of the most liked features from the other shells and merge them into one interface for all of us to use. So a quick look at the man page for bash shows that it's very, very, very long. You can do so many things with bash. So we won't look at all of it. Actually, we won't look at much of it right now. Just understand that the shell is an extremely powerful program, letting you do many, many things. You can pipe output to other commands. You can do any of the programming constructs found in most programming languages like Python and Java. And we're going to learn how to use it. But first, just understand that you are using this powerful tool every time you type a command in Linux. I'm going to type clear to clear the screen if you haven't seen me do that before. So what happens behind the scenes when you type a command into the shell, the bash shell? Let's see what happens when we do ls. So bash knows what we mean when we type ls. So how does it know that? There are a whole bunch of commands built into Linux, but how does it know where to find those? The operating system looks for that command, ls, in several places. One of them is /bin. We can see where ls is located by typing the command which, and then the command we're looking for. So which ls. And we can see that that's in bin/ls. Let's take a quick look at the which man page. See there, it helps you locate a command. When I type ls with no arguments or options, bash knows it's supposed to list whatever's in the folder. If I add an option, it'll tell me more about the file. In this case, it looked for the command ls, then it looked for options after the command. We could also have an argument after that, like the name of a file. So it gives us information only about that file now. We can do other things like wildcards to let us see more than one file if there's several in the directory that we're searching. So let's make a few. We'll do touch. So now if we do ls, we can see all those files. But let's say we want to just find files that have test in them. We could type ls test and then the star key, asterisk. And it'll tell us what files begin with test. You can see that Theo wasn't listed there. We could do the same with Theo. Now we can see just Theo1 and Theo. A similar process was happening with the touch command. I type touch and then some arguments. Bash will interpret more than one argument at a time depending on the command. So when I typed several file names in a row, it made all of those files for us. So when you type a command into Linux in the shell, it's interpreted and any arguments and switches or options are also interpreted. We've barely touched on anything the shell can do here, but we'll go in much more detail in the coming lessons.